Okay, so starting from 23, again, we have quite a long sentence. So let's start by finding our subject verb clauses. Materialist scientist and her colleagues, so we can cross out the name that is essential positive, right? Compound subject, believe they could improve, cross out prepositional phrase, on the multi-component alloy, blah, blah, blah. And then afterwards, we have non-essential appositive as well. So I can cross out the whole thing inside, right? This is a list. So they could improve by replacing chromium with ruthenium. And now, the alloy that resulted, so our subject is the alloy. Cross out that resulted because it is an adjective clause, and then appositive turned out to be an unsuitable replacement. So we know that there are two complete sentences before and after the underlined section. So I need to use either period or semicolon or comma fanboys. So Sandy, what would be the answer?
D.
Yeah, comma fanboys. That's the only one that can separate two complete sentences. Okay, and number 24, we can see this is verb. So first thing we do is find subject. So I'm going to start from after period, which is among. And this is interesting. 90% of the sentences follow subject, verb, word order. But in this case, we have a prepositional phrase, so you have to cross it out. So really, what is your subject? It's Josephine St. Pierre Ruffin, this guy, or Ruffin. Okay,
Well,
so it is singular. So our answer is A. That's it. Okay, so whenever your sentence starts with preposition, cross it out first. Probably it is a verb subject structure. Okay. And moving on to number 25. Okay, so let's see. Starting from however. So, however, since uncovering fragments of a 2,000-year-old reindeer training harness in northern Siberia, blah, blah, blah. Okay, so a lot of students, especially native speakers, they would struggle with this kind of sentence because they don't know what it's doing. So they would just try and read everything and see which one sounds the best. But whenever you see a comma followed by underline, the first thing you do is check to see if you have a phrase or a clause before the comma. Because if you have a phrase, that means it is a dangling modifier question. So what is a modifier doing at the beginning of a sentence? A phrase at the beginning of the sentence has to modify the subject after the comma. In this case, since uncovering fragments, that is a phrase. It is not a clause. It doesn't have subject verb. So who would be uncovering fragments? That person has to be our subject. So do you see how the answer is A right away?
yeah,
Because A, subject is researcher.
because the second one is the argument.
Yeah, exactly. And this one that is domestication, so that is incorrect. And then D is argument. So A is right. Okay, so we call this a dangling modifier question. Very good. Okay, so let's do one more. So we see period, comma, and no punctuation. So we know that we have to read from beginning of sentence all the way to period. Find our subject verb. So archaeologist, cross out the name because that's essential positive. Traveled, cross out prepositional phrase to study its ancient tombs. That is an infinitive phrase. So I'm going to cross that out too. And then we see built into the rocky outcrops of a vast desert. That is a participle phrase. But after the participle phrase, I have these burial chambers seem to blend. So I have a complete sentence, meaning I have to use period function. So A would be our answer, okay, for two independent clauses. Okay, so last question for this session. Same thing, comma usage, right? And of course, we see compound, which is a noun. We see aluminum oxide, which is another noun. So this is testing us on our appositive. Is this essential or non-essential? So without aluminum oxide, there's simply too many chemical compounds. So it is essential. So you should actually cross out the ones with one comma, right? They don't exist. So that is D right away. Okay. And that is it for this session.